All right, hi everyone. Welcome to the Chile Across South America program. My name is Cody Ryberg. I'm one of the Senior Study Abroad Advisors here in the Study Abroad office. And we're joined with Dr. Peter Ciavelis, Dr. Ed Allen, Dr. Miles Silman, and Dr. Hassan Akram. And we'll be going through the presentation for the Chile program, give you a chance to meet the two resident professors that are going to be going, and then at the end, ask some questions. So, we have Dr. Allen from Math and Stats leading the Fall 21 program. And we have Dr. Silman from Biology and Environmental Services leading Spring 22. The next slide will give them a little bit of chance to talk about themselves, talk about the classes. And then we will have Dr. Ciavelis talk a little bit about the program as well. We'll have Hassan jump in sporadically as well too to kind of talk about life in Chile as well. So Dr. Allen, do you want to start just kind of talking about yourself?
Sure. Okay, so my name is Ed Allen. I've been at Wake Forest now for 29 years. I came to Wake Forest right after I got my PhD at the University of California, San Diego. I grew up in Southern California. I spent some time back in the early 1980s down in South America for about 2 years or so. And I really had an enjoyable experience down there. And so I'm really looking forward to going back. My research area is, I do some things in combinatorics, which is essentially the theory of enumeration or counting. I also do some things in bioinformatics, where we're looking at genes and we're trying to model gene reactions in cells. I'm married. My wife, who teaches Spanish, who also lived for a little bit. Actually, she lived down in Honduras for about a year and a half or so. She's also going to be coming down with us down to Chile. But I have 3 adult children who are off doing their own things right now. They're finishing up college, or they finish college and they're off to work. Did you want me to also say a little bit about what we're teaching down there, or just introduce myself now, Cody?
The next slide will be the courses, so we'll just do quick introductions.
Okay.
Dr. Silman?
Hi, I'm Miles Silman. I'm a professor of biology, and I run the Center for Energy, Environment, and Sustainability. And I study the way biodiversity is distributed on the Earth, and I've been doing that mainly with the Western Amazon and Andes as my focal system now for the last 30 years. And I've been at Wake Forest for 23 years now. I too am married, and I have 3 middle schoolers. By the time the course comes around, 2 of them will be in high school. So the whole family will be down there.
And then, so Fall 21, Dr. Allen's going to be teaching these classes here on the screen, and Dr. Silman's going to be teaching these classes during Spring 22. So I want you guys to talk a little bit about the classes, kind of what you are hoping, kind of broad scope for the classes to entail when the students are down there.
So the courses I'm teaching are should be a lot of fun and with a lot of current applications. The MST 107 is also cross-listed for this particular program, also as Political Science 243, and it's about mathematics and politics. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at politics from a mathematical point of view, and computing some very fundamental things in politics. For example, we know that the President of the United States is more powerful than a member of the Senate. Okay, but how much more powerful? I mean, the president doesn't have all power. Somehow this power is shared. And so can you come up with a metric or a way of measuring how much more power the president has than the member of the Senate? And there's a couple of techniques for doing this, and we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about other things such as voting methods. What are the various ways that you can select or choose to do things? We'll be looking at the various processes that they do this worldwide, and which is actually a lot of fun, because right now, there's a lot of talk, not only in the United States, but also in Chile and also, in other places in South America about what is fair in terms of political processes. And so while we're down in Chile and Argentina, Peru, and Ecuador. We're going to have an opportunity while we're down there to speak with political scientists from the universities down there who are going to be talking about how what we're learning in class about kind of modeling this just mathematically, how this has applications to what's actually happening in their country. I should point out that this 107 has no prerequisites. It is something that you can do easily with 8th grade algebra. It's mostly about counting and figuring out how you can count things in fun ways. The other two courses, the 205 and 251, are going to be kind of run together. There's things in there where we talk about differential equations. Differential equations, we'll be using it to like model pandemics or the spread of rumors or things of that nature. And so we'll be able to, look at what has happened, with the coronavirus and see if we could, what we could predict, what should have happened or what did happen with that. The 205, as I pointed out earlier, I think allows for students who are in the engineering program to participate with us, or physics. Okay, the 251 is for math majors or stat majors or the like. So there's a lot of opportunities for lots of different students to participate in what we're doing.
Dr. Silman, you want to talk a little bit about your courses?
You bet. I'm tempted to comment on Dr. Allen's stuff though, because those courses are such powerful ways of having different tools to think about the world. That is really cool. Like I might try and sign up for MST 205. The courses that I'm going to teach are in my disciplines. There'll be two. One is community ecology and global change, and that's a 4-hour bio course. So it has a lab. It will also count for the E&B major. And the other one is Bio 325, South American Biodiversity and Conservation. And this is a course that's similar to a course that I've offered within the country of Peru since I came here in 1998. I think I offered it the first time in 1999. And that one will count also as a divisional and for Bio, E&V, and Latin American studies. And there may be others, minors that it'll count for. So what are we going to do? In community ecology and global change, we're going to study how organisms live their life in relationship with the environment and organismal interactions, and then how the globe has been changing both in the past and also how it's changing in ongoing ways and into the future. And we're going to take advantage of our travels around South America and also the country of Chile to give us examples. So we're going to spend as much time as we can out in the field visiting different habitats and actually seeing some of these organisms, thinking about glaciers. Some of the most amazing examples of glacial retreat are in Chile and on the Chile and Argentine border. And then South American biodiversity is one where we'll really take advantage of the habitats in the country. So one of the questions that the course is formed around is just you're at a place on the earth and you see radical changes as you move from one spot to another. So if we start in the north part of Chile, you have the world's driest desert. In places where it doesn't rain a little bit, it never rains. And yet as you move a few hundred miles down the coast, you come into the wettest rainforests in South America. And so what sets those? What sets the organisms that live there, and how do we understand the basic things such as productivity and the ecosystem services that it provides humanity? And the other thing we're going to take advantage of is that Chile has one of the most amazing network of national parks and protected areas, and both the way that it's come together, how people decide to make parks, and the different manners that they've been made provide a really interesting set of case studies that we can look at. So those are the two things that I want to teach while I'm down there.
Okay. Dr. Civelis, do you want to give a little introduction as to who you are and your role with the program?
Sure. My name is Peter Civelis. I'm the on-campus director for Chile Across South America program. My area of research has been Chilean politics, so I have a special place in my heart for Chile, and spent many, many years living there, working there, and studying the country as well. We've been running a program in South America for about the last 11 or 12 years, based in Santiago. We've made some changes to it this year, so it's pretty exciting. There's going to be some differences than there has been in the past. And these are mostly just to respond to what students have asked for, and so we wanted to provide them more of what they were interested in doing. Not to say that the program that we were running had anything wrong with it. It's just the timing of it across the semester was a little bit problematic for students, so we made some important adjustments and added a whole travel month. So Cody, I don't know if you want me to go into anything about the program or just wait as we sort of move it forward.
We'll wait till we move forward. I think next is we'll have a discussion with the on-site team. So Hassan, do you want to give a little background on the on-site team? And Peter, you can join in where you feel appropriate.
Sure, Cody. This introduction will also include just a little bit of information about the different courses that the team will be teaching. So I'm Hassan Akram. I'm the resident director of Wake Forest's Chile programs. And I'm also a professor of public policy at the Diego Portales University, which is our partner university in Santiago. I've been working now for Wake Forest for 6 years, and my field of investigation is political economy, effectively, the role that economic elites play in the shaping of politics. And I'll actually be teaching the Latin American politics elective. So one of the things that you can do, as well as taking the resident professor's course, is take this course in a general introduction to politics in Chile in a comparative perspective. So we look at what happens in the United States, we look at what happens in other Latin American countries to better understand what's going on in Chile. Of course, this whole study abroad experience is about taking you, to a certain extent, out of your comfort zones. It's about going to a different country and realizing that although many, many things seem incredibly similar, there are slightly different ways of doing things. And these different ways of doing things can actually make you think. It's a great phrase from the poet Rudyard Kipling. What do they know of England who only England know? And this applies to all countries. What you really know about your own country, about the United States, is vastly increased if you have a point of comparison. So in terms of your social experience, what we want you to do in your semester abroad is obviously to have a great time, enjoy the campus experience at the Diego Portales, but also to be making these kind of comparisons and questioning, because things that you think of as just the ordinary way of doing things may not actually be the only way of doing things. And the Chilean politics course that I teach is also about that. It's about taking that into the academic sphere. It's about looking at the different ways in which economic and social policy is made in Chile and comparing it across. So Cody, I'll go on to talk about the rest of the team.
Yes.
Is that good? Yeah. So that's the Latin American politics course, which is an elective and it also counts as a divisional. And basically all of these courses, they count as divisionals, and they are an introduction to the general field. So I don't assume that much knowledge of politics or of economics, but the focus is very strongly on the comparative aspect and on the Latin American aspect of the politics. And the same thing applies with the economics elective that we have. So Ricardo Mayer is also a professor of economics at the UDP, so he's from the University of Chicago, and he's worked at the CEPAL, which is the Economic Commission of the UN of Latin America and the Caribbean. And that gives two very, very different institutions in terms of how economics is understood. And they've actually been tremendously influential in Chile, mostly in being opposed to each other in terms of economic policy. So it's a good round experience there. And of course, he'll be teaching on Latin American economics, will again assume only that you have taken a 1 semester introductory course to economics. So it's again it's not an advanced course in terms of assumed knowledge, but what it does is start to apply some of the concepts that you might have learned in introductory economics to the specifically Latin American context. So again, the comparative aspect is very strong there. Do you want to, yeah. Okay, so the another divisional you can take, another elective, is Latin American music with Daniel Larraín, who's also a UDP professor. All of these courses, by the way, are in English. Mention that. And again, here he introduced you to the broad range of Latin American compositions, a big focus on what's called the Nueva Canción Chilena, the new Chilean song, and then Nueva Trova Cubana. These are musical styles that grew up in the 1960s, and along with the literary boom with Gabriel Garcia Marquez and Julio Cortázar, were very important in the way that Latin America's culture solidified itself and started to present itself to the world. So there'll be a great introduction there to the musical traditions. Again, it will have a strong focus on Chile and will help you, we hope, in your daily interactions during your time studying abroad. Because many of these things are meant to be, to give you things that when you're walking around in Santiago, you could think, oh, I understand that particular thing. I understand if I walk into a store, the music that's playing, or if there are other UDP students listening, I understand that music and I understand that context because I will have studied a bit of it in class. That if you see certain things about the way, I don't know, the shops function, the way that tax receipt, the way they give you tax receipts, all of these little daily things will think, oh, this chimes with what I've been studying. So the hope is that, and again, with the Latin American music class, there will be a strong comparative element and a strong element of helping you to become culturally literate, as it were, to be able to navigate the space of this new country better. And finally, we have Margot Charles, and she is our Spanish as a foreign language teacher. And she'll be helping me with the Chilean language and culture course. So this is a course that runs throughout the entire semester. The other electives, we do in an intensive format, parts of the semester, but this runs across the entire semester. And it's not a strictly classroom-based course. It's wider than that. It's in fact the first course you'll be taking when you get to Latin America, and I'll be co-teaching it with her. Some of it will be linguistic, so it will be helping you with the basic Spanish you need to be able to, go into a shop and buy bread. Buying bread is apparently very, very important. It's the only thing people eat, it seems. So it's important to be able to go into shops and do that kind of thing. So that's the linguistic course element of it. It's odd, just to give you a quick example. It's not specifically about learning Spanish, because in fact you can speak fluent Spanish and not really understand what's going on. The first time I went to a shop in Chile, having learned Spanish in Venezuela and being fluent in Spanish, I walked up to the counter with bread, as I say, it's the thing you only buy, to which I was told, el pan se pesa, which translates directly to, you weigh bread. Now, I understood exactly what she said. It was just completely useless to understand it because I didn't understand the cultural context at all. It's like, fine, one weighs bread, weigh it. But what she actually meant was, we do not have the technology to weigh the bread at the cash register. You have to go back to the special bread weighing place, weigh it, figure out its price, and then come back. Now, all of that contained, you see, that kind of cultural information is not something you'll get in a Spanish class, but you will get in this Chilean language and culture class, along with questions like, do you collect points? So those kind of things for supermarket interactions. Just a quick example of the kind of thing we'll be covering. And obviously it goes much beyond that. We'll also be dealing as we travel across all of Latin America. So we'll start obviously in Santiago and in Chile, and then we'll be going south to Buenos Aires and to Montevideo, that's Argentina and Uruguay, and then north to Peru, different parts of Peru, and to Ecuador, depending on the semester. And the idea will be, again, to look at how those countries are different culturally and linguistically. So we'll be having different guest lectures. I'll be coordinating the course, so I've given it a kind of economic policy common thread. In that one of the things that marks out Latin American countries economically, which has a huge impact in their language, their culture, their ways of functioning, is the natural resources they export. So Chile is a country that exports copper. And that's still, between 60 and 80% of an export basket, depending on how you calculate it. So the fact that Chile is a copper mining country runs through its culture. The fact that Argentina is a country that exports beef, and in fact was one of the richest countries in the world on the back of its beef exports in the 19th century, is tremendously important. We will be spending some time with the Argentinian cowboys on their ranches. So giving you a sense of the fact that the country is a beef exporter, linked strongly then with that cowboy culture that it has. We'll be going then to Peru, which again is a different kind of mining country, at a different level of development there. In fact, Peru is very interesting because it's almost 3 countries, because it's 3 completely different climatic and therefore economic structures. You have a coastal zone, which is trading. You have Sierra, which are like plains, which is where most of the agriculture takes place. And then you have jungle, which is, again, mining. So we'll be seeing those 3 climatic zones within Peru, and hopefully seeing how those different commodity exports impact on the language, the culture, and the way that you will interact with those societies. And we'll be doing the same thing in Ecuador, which distinguishes itself for being one of those banana republics, so called because the United States toppled the governments in order to make sure that they were better, more willing to give their bananas up to Washington. So we'll be following that thread of commodities. But that's really is a way of an introductory way of getting to meet more of the people in the country, getting to understand what their culture is about. And hopefully what I most want for all of the students who take this course and indeed come and study abroad in Chile is to come back home to the United States and see your own country with different eyes, to see things that you've thought of as just the normal way of doing things. Oh, that was done differently in Latin America. Is this better? Is this worse? Let's start to think about those things. So hopefully that's what will happen with this study abroad experience. Cool.
Thanks, Hassan.
Just a basic note. The travel experience and the course is going to be a little bit different based on the semester because Professor Silman's doing something a little bit different. But any of you that are interested, I would encourage you to talk to the respective professor to find out details on what each travel month is going to entail.
Mm-hmm. So as we mentioned, there's the elective courses in addition to the resident professor courses. The one course that's going to be common for every semester that every student's going to take is the Contemporary Chilean Language and Culture course, which is what Hassan was talking about. So that'll be an INS 170 course. And then the other 3 courses there you can choose from when you're over there. And then you'll have these 3 different program tracks to choose from. We have the primary track, an internship track, and the honors track. Primary track, as it says, has no language requirement. But if you do want to do the internship or the honors track, then you will need to have at least 1 200-level Spanish course completed at Wake Forest before you go. Won't go too much into reading what's on here, but Peter, do you have anything that you'd like to kind of highlight about the program tracks?
No, just that students should just take a close look at what's written right there. If you do choose the internship track, what that entails is getting a copy of your resume to Hassan, along with a list of places you'd be potentially interested in interning, what sort of places, and then we work on getting those set up for you. But we can provide more details on that if you're interested in the internship track.
So the program structure is right here. Peter, do you want to talk about the program structure and kind of the difference in calendar between fall and spring?
Right. So usually this this program would just be run in the spring, but because of the situation that we're facing right now with COVID in Latin America, where it is actually it's more severe in terms of per capita cases, we decided to shift this spring program, the next spring program, to the fall, and then we'll just go ahead and leave the 2022 program in the spring as it's scheduled. We anticipate by fall 2021, the conditions should be such that you'll be able to travel in Latin America, you'll be able to live safely in Latin America. And that was really uncertain about the next spring. So what we did is we just sort of flipped the usual spring schedule for the fall, because obviously, because the seasons are reversed between the Northern Hemisphere and the Southern Hemisphere, we wanted to adjust the travel month. So you would be traveling when it's a little bit warmer than it would have been if you traveled right at the beginning. So you'll start out August to October if you're going in the fall, choosing your 3 tracks, which one you're interested in. then followed by the academic excursions to Argentina, Ecuador, Peru, and Uruguay, and then come back and take one resident professor course when you return. During the entire semester, as Hassan noted, you'll be taking the INS 170 Contemporary Latin American Language and Culture. For the spring, you start out with that one resident professor course, then you go on the excursions. And again, I've adjusted it there because Dr. Silman is going to do something a little bit different in Patagonia. And then March to May, students begin their coursework choosing one of those tracks, primary, internship, or honors. So that's the basic way the structure of the program works. And even though each of these professors has a different area of expertise, and you might want to choose based on that area of expertise, I think this really can be open to any major, given the number of divisionals that we're offering right here now and the variety of courses. I'll talk a little bit more about that as well when I talk about the benefits of the program.
Just some information on Santiago. Hassan and Peter, do you want to kind of just talk a little bit about life in Santiago for the students? It's kind of like that.
Or I'll make some comments, then I'll open it up to Hassan. We were told to come up with interesting facts about Chile for this slide, but there's just like way too much that's interesting about Chile about Santiago to get everything on here. But I just want to point out that this is really a major metropolitan center, a lot of art, culture, museums. But Santiago is also the capital of Chile, and you'll soon find out that it's very, very centralized. Almost everything radiates from Santiago, and this has political consequences. It has consequences for the environment. And it had consequences for COVID even, because 40% of the population lives in Santiago. So it was a very concentrated population living sort of like, as New York became an epicenter for the disease. It was founded by Pedro de Valdivia in 1541, just fun fact. One of my students that came with me was the great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandson of Pedro de Valdivia, which was kind of cool to have him with us. Although he was a murderous conquistador, so there's that out there, right? So it wasn't all entirely good to be of that lineage, but it was exciting. As Professor Silman will surely point out, there's major pollution issues in Santiago. It's improving, however. When I lived there in the 1990s, it was barely livable, but they've taken a series of methods to lower the particulate pollution that exists in the city. But it's a really pleasant place to live with a pleasant climate. Great extensive metro system and public transportation. And just two little fun facts: you actually can buy sushi outside the metro station. I'm not advocating that you do, but it's the only place I've ever seen this, from roving vendors selling sushi, which Chileans didn't even know what sushi was back in the 90s. So, globalization. And also, when you have time, take a look at the photo or the video that we have of the puma roving the streets of Santiago. With COVID and the streets being empty, the pumas have come down and decided that they can take control of Santiago. But don't fear, by the time you get down there, they'll be back up in the mountains. We hope. Hassan, anything?
I think, Peter, you have been playing fast and loose with the concept of interesting, but I suppose that's fair enough. We did try and put interesting things here. The pollution issues, just as a point of honor, the Chinese government sent a team of experts to study Santiago, because it has been one of the countries that has most reduced their levels of pollution over the last decades. So, of course, you can only reduce it if you have a major problem, and it's certainly true that it had a major problem, but it has improved a great deal. Chile still has major environmental problems, and in fact is home to the most polluted city in all of the Americas, which is Guayaquil in the south. But that's largely because it's in a tiny valley, trapped microclimate, and everybody heats their houses by burning wood. So interestingly, one of the biggest things that causes urban pollution is using old-fashioned firewood to heat houses, because of course firewood is wet, and so when you heat it, the smoke comes up and it's extremely toxic. So actually, Santiago is much better than a lot of other cities. The sushi is not recommended. It's what we call Chilean sushi, which is half cream cheese and half avocado. Chile is the country that produces the largest number of avocados in the world at the lowest prices. It's odd things that we think of as expensive or luxury fruit, like cherries and sushi, and cherries and avocados are things that you will get in all meals in Chile because it's standard staple everywhere. And yes, the sushi largely consists of cream cheese and occasionally cream cheese, avocado, and occasionally mayonnaise. Chile is also number 3 in per capita mayonnaise consumption. So that's something you should be warned about.
You're jumping ahead in the presentation.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. I thought I was on this list.
We have a mayonnaise slide, right?
Oh, sorry. Okay. That is an important piece of education. Sorry. We'll get to that.
These are just some pictures of Santiago, just for everybody to kind of see and kind of get excited about being there. And here we do have the mayonnaise slide. Peter and Hassan, you want to give a little bit of information on Chile as well? Quick info.
Sure. We'll get to the mayonnaise in a second, but what I want to stress is, Chile has a population of roughly 18.5 million. But what a lot of people don't realize that if you put Chile on a U.S. map, it stretches all the way from Connecticut to San Francisco, and at its widest spot, it's only 187 miles wide. So this has important historical reasons for why Chile looks like that way. And it's, mostly the Andes Mountains, right? And so in many senses, Chile was always sort of felt as itself as sort of the end of the world, sealed off from everything. And interestingly, a lot of the diseases that attacked European farms, Chile, they never really arrived to Chile, and because of this isolation. And Chile continues to jealously guard its agricultural production by trying to limit the introduction of any foreign species. But it also means, and I'm sure Professor Silman will go into a lot of detail about this, that you have a tremendous climate variation. I have a picture in my office of my best friend in Chile and me skiing, and people are like, "Oh, is that like Switzerland or something?" I'm like, "No, it's Chile," and people are kind of amazed because when our shape of the way we think about Latin America is really deeply impacted by our images of what is Mexico. But Chile goes, as Professor Silman said, the driest desert in the north, deciduous rainforest in central Chile, and then fjords like in Norway in the extreme south. So there's a lot to get to know, and some of the most spectacular scenery in the world, without a lot of people in it, because everybody's sort of concentrated in Santiago. And for better or for worse, the Chilean government has not done a very good job in promoting tourism, right? Highest per capita number of metal bands in Latin America. An important center for wine production. It's the 4th biggest wine producer in the world, and the 3rd highest per capita consumer of mayonnaise, as Hassan noted. And you'll see that is an actual Chilean hot dog called a completo, and that's how it will look, even if you ask for light mayonnaise.
And that is if you ask for light mayonnaise. If you don't, you can get more. Fun politics and economics fact, saying we're on the subject of agriculture. So Chile has incredibly strict sanitary and phytosanitary regulations. This is the rules about what you can bring into the country to prevent the contamination of the agricultural system. So, you could be bringing heroin in and they will look slightly better upon you than if you're bringing in seeds. They're very concerned about the contamination of their agriculture. If you bring in, for example, an apple, they had a diplomatic incident where an ambassador came in eating an apple and they tried to arrest him because, of course, the apple had seeds in it and he was in the process of removing the seeds from his mouth. It was terrible. the thing about it, it's interesting that these very, very strict regulations have allowed Chile to maintain certain agricultural things that other countries can't. For example, speaking about the wine production, in France, for those who are interested in wine, the grape variety Carmener died out because of crop diseases, but it survived in Chile. And today, if you buy Carmener wine, it will come almost exclusively from Chile because it's the one place that where the tradition carried on. It's important to understand about the mayonnaise, by the way, for those of you who will be here in summer, that it is highly dangerous. Mayonnaise-related deaths number in the tens in summer due to homemade, illicit mayonnaise making. You have to understand that when we say the per capita third highest level of mayonnaise consumption, that number one is Russia, and number two is Belgium. And those are really talking about different kinds of mayonnaise. So Russia, they effectively mean horseradish sauce. And in Belgium, you're talking about a highly sophisticated artisanal production of high quality mayonnaise. In Chile, you're talking about raw egg slop, which you can see in that photograph. And the mayonnaise related deaths are due to the fact that people produce this illicit mayonnaise in their houses without proper sanitary protection. So if you're going to eat mayonnaise, make sure you do it in a restaurant and not on the street. Don't become another statistic.
Then here we just have a couple more pictures of Chile in general. Famous Easter Island.
With our students.
Yes.
That's Valparaiso, which will take you a tour to Chile's second city. It's only an hour and a half from Santiago.
It's a World Heritage Site with amazing architecture that's all multicolored, and people call it sort of the San Francisco of the South.
And then kind of a note on the activity and excursions for the sake of time. So as we mentioned earlier, during the months of February or November, you'll go to those locations depending on semester and the faculty leading. The activities and the excursions, if they're provided by the program, they are part of the program cost. So you're not having to pay extra for your travel to and from Argentina, Ecuador, Peru, and all that stuff. That is part of what you're paying for the cost of the program. And speaking of that, the program cost is the same as a WAKE semester. So you pay the same WAKE tuition. It includes all that stuff listed there. And then you also will receive a travel scholarship of $1,500 once you've committed to the program. And that goes on, it's a scholarship that will be applied to your account and it will be put on your Wake Forest tuition. That's on there to help you offset the cost of airfare. And sometimes depending on how early you buy, you might have a little bit left over for spending money. If you are interested in the program and seeing how the scholarship works with that, send me an email and we can talk about that in a little bit more detail. There are some costs that students are responsible for on their own that are not provided. So as it says there, your personal expenses, some meals, visas, and passport fees to get in and out for the country. And then we have just some information on the Latin American language and culture course. We won't go too much into this since we kind of already talked about some of this stuff. So just some things to read up on later on. Like I said earlier, you will be getting this information sent to you later on after the fair is over. And then, Peter, do you want to give just a brief, 2-minute overview on housing?
Sure. What I want to stress to anyone that's interested, that one of the biggest benefits of this program is that it's a Wake Forest program, and that carries with it a whole series of positives. First of all, as Cody said, it's just like paying on-campus tuition. Your financial aid applies, and you get a lot more than you do on campus. Last time I checked, you didn't get airfare back and forth to South America when you stayed up on the on-campus experience, right? Not to mention all of the travel. So also means you don't have to worry about any transfer credits. This is all Wake credit. Also means that you have a staff that you can rely on in Santiago that our affiliate programs really don't have. This gives you a sense of both security, but also someone that you can talk to in person regarding any issues that you might have during the course of your stay. So in terms of the housing, we do live with local families, mostly in apartments. It's important to remember that this is a major city, so commutes are not like walking from Polo residence to the quad. It takes a little longer than that, but the houses are located within a reasonable transport distance from Santiago. Shared accommodations are during the excursions, and you get 2 meals a day. And the benefits of living with a family are numerous. I mean, many of my students sort of panic when they get there because they don't understand Spanish, and they learn very, very rapidly because there's not a lot of people that speak English in Chile. Also, it gives you a window into the culture, as Hassan talked about. You see how the families live their daily lives. And as a political scientist, when I teach politics, my students learn a whole bunch about politics in conversations with their host families. So there's a real upside to having that window into Chilean culture.
Thanks.
In terms of the logistics, yeah, what Peter says about the metro is very important. So we've made an effort to make sure that all of the host families have housing that within a walking distance or an almost walking distance of a metro station. And obviously in a large city, once you are in a metro station, you can get almost anywhere. So that makes it much easier to navigate.
And then just the last little bit of information. So these are the application requirements. So if you haven't already started your application on Wake Abroad, there's a link for that. And then the deadlines. And you will have to do an interview with the resident professor. So you'd reach out to them and set up a time to meet with them. If you have any questions about creating the application and what's required, feel free to send me an email. And I'd be happy to talk to you about that in more detail. Then just to round out the presentation, we have a few more slides here for some pictures, and then we'll open up for questions here in a second.
This is all Peru. This is Argentina.